Select review questions from Chapter 3. Write the inequality whose graph is given. So we're going to look at this inequality, and the first thing we need to do is figure out what kind of line is it. Since this is a horizontal line, and y is on 3, so y is at 3. Since y is at 3, we know it's going to be y3. All we need to figure out is what kind of inequality we're going to use. Alright, we have a dotted line. So since we have a dotted line, we know we're going to use one of these. Since it's moving up and it's shaded up, up means greater than. So we're going to use greater than. So our answer is y is greater than 3. We're going to graph the inequality. So we're going to use the graphing tool to graph the inequality. So to graph, we need to get it into y equals mx plus b. So we just need to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 6x to both sides. And when we do, we have y is greater than negative 6x plus 1. So we need two things now. We need the y-intercept, which I call the start, because that's the first point you plot, which is 0, 1. So I'm going to plot 0, 1. And then I'm going to use our slope. So our slope is the number with the x. So the number with the x is negative 6. So our slope is negative 6 over 1. That means I go down 6, right 1. So from my start, from my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 6, right 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right 1. And there's my point. From there, I need to connect the dots. So since there is no line underneath, since there's no line under it, we are going to have a dotted line. So when we connect the dots, it's going to be a dotted line. And then now we need to shade. So we read this as y is greater than x. So if we think of greater than, if I go left, those are negative numbers. That's not greater than. I need to go greater than, which are my positive numbers, so we're going to shade towards the right. The number of people employed in some country as medical assistants was 365,000 in 2007. By the year 2017, this number is expected to rise to 573,000. Let y be the number of medical assistants in thousands employed in a country in the year x, where x0 represents 2007. We're going to write a linear equation that models the number of people in thousands employed as medical assistants in the year x. Hint, the line must pass through the points 0, 3, 6, 5 and 10, 5, 7, 3. So we need to write linear equation. So our first step is to find the slope. So we're given 2 points. We're given them x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's go ahead and plug them into our slope formula. So we have y2, which is 573, minus y1, which is 365, over x2, which is 10, minus x1, which is 0. So we're going to simplify here. We get 208 over 10, which is 20.8. So we found our slope. Now, why did we use decimal? Why did we go from fraction to decimal? Because it says decimals. It told us to use decimals. That's why. Alright, now let's go ahead and find our y-intercept. So our y-intercept, we use y equals mx plus b. So we need our m that we just found of 20.8. And we need x and y. So you can use any point that you have, but I'm going to use 0 and 365 because those are smaller points. And then we're going to plug them in. So we have y, which is 365, equals m, which is 20.8, times x, which is 0, plus b. So we do 20.8 times 0 is 0, so we have 365 equals b. Now, why is 365 equal b? Don't we already have that number? It's because year 0, that's x at 0. So when x is 0, you have your y-intercept. If you already knew that, you already knew that. You wouldn't have to do all this. If you knew 0, 365 was your y-intercept because x is 0, you are 100% right. But if that's not jumping out at the page, find the y-intercept doing how we normally do it. Do this step right here. All right, now our third step is to use y equals mx plus b again, but we're only going to be plugging in the m and the b. So we have y equals m, which is 20.8, x plus b, so plus 365. And that is our linear equation. So I'm going to put it up here. We have y equals 20.8x plus 365. Alrighty, part B. Use this equation to estimate the number of people who will be employed as medical assistant in the year 2016. So we said we started collecting this data in 2007. So we need to know how long, how many years, how many x's has it been from 2007 to 2016. So that's how we're going to find x. We do x equals 2016 minus 2007, and we get 9. So x is 9. That means it's been 9 years after we started collecting this data. So we're going to plug in x as 9. So we have y equals 20.8x, which is 9, plus 365. 20.8 times 9, we get 187.2 plus 365. And when we add 365 to that, we get 552.2. So we're going to put that up here. It says to use integer or decimal, so we're going to use our decimal. So we have 552.2 thousand people in 2017. Or sorry, 2016. All right, number 36. Find an equation of the line through 2, 4 and parallel to y equals 4x minus 3. Write the equation in using function notation. Okay. It says find equation line. That means we're going to do those steps. So our first step is to find the slope. So it tells us something special about the slope. It says it's the line through 2, 4 and parallel to this line. So it tells us that the slope is parallel to y equals 4x minus 3. Parallel means same. So we want to pull our slope out of y equals 4x minus 3. That means our slope that we're going to use is 4. Now our second step is to use y equals mx plus b. We want to plug in x and y. So we have our point of 2, 4. And we want to plug in our m. So we have y, which is 4. And that equals m, which is 4, times x, which is 2, plus b. So we have 4 equals 4 times 2, which is 8, plus b. We subtract 8, so we get negative 4 equals b. Now our third step is to use y equals mx plus b again. But this time we only plug in m, and we plug in the b we found. So we have y equals m, which is 4x plus b. So since it's negative 4, we don't put plus minus 4, we just put minus 4. And it wants it in function notation. Function notation just means switch this to f of x. That's it. So we have f of x equals 4x minus 4. We're going to write an equation of a line, vertical, and it goes through 5, 2. So if I just think of a vertical line looks something like this, right? Or it looks something like this. It's just vertical. So a vertical line goes through the x-axis. Because I know it goes through the x-axis, I know it's going to be x equals. And whatever point you have, if it's x equals, you choose the x. If it's y equals, you choose the y. Since it's x equals, x equals 5. Let's use the slope-intercept form to graph the equation. So to graph a line, we need it to be y equals mx plus b, which it is. So now that it is, there's two things we need. We need the y-intercept, which is called the start, and that's the number without x. So it's 0, negative 5. Now we plot that before we do anything else. So 0, negative 5, we plot it. And then we need our m. M is the number with x. So since it's 3, we have 3 over 1. So I'm going to go up 3, right 1. So from our slope, or from our y-intercept, I'm going to go up 3, right 1. So 1, 2, 3, right 1, and then we connect the dots. This is not an inequality, so it's a solid line. We don't need to shade. Alright, we're going to graph the linear function by finding x and y intercepts, then write the equation using function notation. Alright, so let's go ahead and graph this using intercepts. So we have two types of intercepts, x and y. Why only two types? Because we only have two variables. So to find the x-intercept, we make y equals 0, and to find the y-intercept, we make x equals 0. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 3x minus 9y, which is 0, equals 9. So 9 times 0 is 0. We have 3x equals 9. Divide by 3, so x equals 3. That means our x-intercept is 3, 0. Now let's find our y-intercept. So we practically do the same thing, but x is 0. So we have 3x, which is 0, minus 9y equals 9. So we have 3 times 0 is 0, so we have negative 9y equals 9. Divide by negative 9, and we have y equals negative 1. So that means our y-intercept is 0, negative 1. So we plot these. So we have 3, 0, and then 0, negative 1, and then we connect the dots. Alright, let's write this using function notation. Function notation, that just means y equals mx plus b. But instead of y, we use f of x. That's it. So let's solve for it. We have 3x minus 9y equals 9. So I'm going to subtract 3x to both sides. And what we do, we have negative 9y equals negative 3x plus 9. And then we're going to divide everything by negative 9. So we have y equals 1/3 x minus 1. So let's put that. We have f of x equals 1/3 x minus 1. Alright, we're given if f of x equals 3x plus 2, g of x equals negative 2x squared plus 4x minus 2, and h of x equals negative 7x plus 2, find g of 0. So if it's asking us to find g of 0, that means it's asking us to use the g function. So the g function is negative 2x squared plus 4x minus 2. Now what it's really asking us is now to plug x as 0. So using the g function, we're going to plug in x for 0. So we have g equals negative 2 blank squared plus 4 blank minus 2. And in that blank, we're plugging in 0. So that leaves us, so negative 2 times 0 squared, that's 0. 4 times 0 is 0. So that leaves us with negative 2. So our answer, g of 0, it equals negative 2. Find the domain and range of the relation shown on the graph to the right. Use the vertical line test to determine whether the graph is that of the graph of a function. Alright, so let's give you some extra information talking about domain. When you have arrows that match one of these patterns, your domain is always going to be all real numbers. And you see how we're going down, down. So our domain is all real numbers. You're going to be using interval notation. So negative infinity, positive infinity. Always, 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 always. Alright, let's determine the range. So we have a sad face. It looks like a sad face. It looks like you're frowning. So when you're sad, you're not feeling too good. You're feeling maybe a little negative about yourself. So it's negative infinity to the biggest y. So the biggest y is negative 3. Since it's a solid line, we get a bracket. So now we need to know, is this a function? Well, this looks just like a parabola, it just looks a little different. So this is a function. So the graph is the graph of a function because a vertical line cannot be drawn so that it intersects the graph more than once. Number 3 is always going to be the same answer. If it is a function, it's is and cannot, and if it's not a function, it's is not and can. And you're going to see an example of that coming up. Alright, let's find the domain and range of the graph shown, and let's go ahead and work it out. So this does not have double arrows, so that means we don't have infinity in our domain. So here, it's always going to be interval notation. So it's always going to be smallest x to biggest x, so 1 to 7. And since it's a solid circle, we do brackets. So 1 to 7. Alright, now the range, since it's a circle, we do like the same thing we just did. It's going to be interval, and it's going to be smallest y to biggest y, so 0 to 6. So how do we know if this is a function or not? We use the vertical line test. I like to use a ruler. So I bust out my ruler, and you see how the graph, the blue graph, hits the ruler more than once at a time? You see how it hits twice all the time? That means it's not a function. So the graph is not the graph of a function because a vertical line can be drawn so that it intersects more than once. More than once, that's always going to be the same. You just need to figure out 1 and 2. Alright, let's solve the compound inequality. Negative 12 is less than 3 times x minus 4. That's less than or equal to 2. So whenever we have a compound inequality or double sides, we're just going to split it up. So we have negative 12 is less than 3 times x minus 4. And then we have 3 times x minus 4 is less than or equal to 2. So let's solve for x. We're going to distribute, so we have negative 12 is less than 3x minus 12. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. And now we're left with 0 is less than 3x. We divide by 3. So we have 0 is less than x. Now we're going to do the same thing for our blue one. So we're going to distribute 3. We have 3x minus 12 is less than or equal to 2. We're going to add 12 to both sides. So we have 3x is less than or equal to 14. Divide by 3. And we get x is less than or equal to 14 over 3. Alright, since this is a compound inequality, it's always going to be put together, smallest number to biggest number. So 0, comma, 14 over 3. Now for 0, since there's no line underneath, it gets a parenthesis. For 14 over 3, since there is a line underneath, it gets a bracket. So our answer is parenthesis 0, comma, 14 over 3, bracket. The perimeter of a triangle shown is to the right is 160 inches. Find the length of the sides. Alright, so we know that perimeter means all sides equal a number. So the perimeter equals 160. Now it's all sides add up to 160. So we have 5x, and then we have plus 6x plus 4. And then we have plus 6x plus 3. So it's everything added equals 160. Now we need to solve for x. So we do 5x plus 6x plus 6x, we get 17x. Then we do 4 plus 3 to get 7, and that equals 160. We're going to subtract 7 to both sides, and we have 17x equals 153. Divide by 17, and we get x equals 9. So that's what x is. That's not what the sides are, that's just what x is. So now we need to find the sides. So our first side, we have 5x, so 5 times 9, we get 45 inches. And then we have 6x plus 4, so that's 6 times 9 plus 4. So 6 times 9, we get 54 plus 4, so that's 58 inches. And then our last one, we have 6x plus 3, so 6 times 9 plus 3. 6 times 9 is 54, and 54 plus 3, we get 57 inches. So it says to use ascending order. That means smallest to biggest. So our smallest is 45 inches. Our middle is 57 inches, and our biggest is 58 inches. Alrighty, last one. We're going to solve the equation. 2x minus 5 over 8 plus x equals 2x plus 5 over 2 plus 1. So I'm just going to bring this out. I want to make everything a fraction since we have multiple fractions here. Alright, now we need to find our common denominator. So I just multiplied the bottoms. So 8 times 1 times 2 times 1, I get 16. So that's going to be my denominator. It could be 8, you could use 8, or you could use 16. So I'm going to multiply everything by 16 over 1. So I have 16 over 1 times, since that's a binomial, I'm going to wrap it, 2x minus 5 over 8 plus 16 over 1 times x over 1 equals 16 over 1 times, now we have another binomial, so I'm going to wrap it, 2x plus 5 over 2, and that's plus 16 over 1 times 1 over 1. Alright, now we're going to cancel out left to right, so 16 divided by 8, we're left with 2. We can't cancel out anything here. Moving on to the other side of the equal sign, 16 divided by 2, we're left with 8. And I cannot cancel anything out to the right, so let's write what we have left over. We have 2 parentheses 2x minus 5 plus 16 times x, so 16x, equals 8 times 2x plus 5 equals 16 times 1, so 16. My bad, plus 16. Plus 16. Now let's go ahead and distribute. So we have 4x minus 10 plus 16x equals, let's distribute the 8, 16x plus 40 plus 16. Now we're going to combine like terms, so 4x plus 16x is 20x minus 10 equals 16x, and then 40 plus 16, we get 56. I'm going to subtract 16x over. So we get 4x minus 10 equals 56. Add 10 over. And when we do, we have 4x equals 66. We divide by 4. So we get x equals 66 over 4. But those are even. Those are both even, so we can and must. You have to simplify. So since they're both even, I'm going to divide by 2, and we get 33 over 2. So x is 33 over 2.